I'm Emily. Welcome to Jacey's Creek, or Dawson's Creek, where I talk about Pacey and Joey as a couple and as individuals. My name is Emily. I will be your host for this podcast. In case this is your first time here, let me give you the small aspects of what this podcast is. This podcast is where I talk about Pacey and Joey, meaning I go through every single scene, episode by episode that the two are in, and tell you what I think about the two. At the end, it will be a collection of all my thoughts on what they are like from beginning to end. As great as social media is, like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or basically whatever else is out there, I think that a podcast is a lot different because you can speak to your audience. We can write down whatever we think about an episode, and trust me, I probably have wrote everything I thought, but you can't hear the tone of voice, you can't hear sarcasm, you can't hear when I'm laughing, you can't hear when I'm crying, like, none of that. You have no clue. But that's what makes this type of social media, this platform, so different from any of the other platforms, because, yes, I could post an hour-long video on YouTube of me talking face to face, and you could see everything that I talk about. But I have personally loved hearing people talk to me, like when I'm doing work, and it's not like they're talking to me directly. Like, I'm not saying, hey, Bob, like, with a soft B, like, I'm talking to you. Do this, and this is my opinion on this. No, it's talking basically about, to everyone, like, hey, this is my thoughts. This is why I'm saying it. And at the end of the day, I hope that you agree with me, and I hope that you laugh. And if you want to message me while you listen, you can always follow me on Instagram, which is Blitter and Potter, and then TikTok is Pacey and Joey. And I want to throw this out there. No way am I supporting Miss Jacobs and Pacey. However, I will make jokes about it because it's a TV show. I'm not going to take this seriously whatsoever. And I just find it pretty funny in a lot of ways how they try to make it where a teacher and a student can easily get together. And I just know that will never happen. So I just want to throw that out there because I feel like if I don't, there's so many opinions out in this world, someone will take this the wrong way. And I just, don't do it, you guys. Don't be stupid. But these are just my opinions. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the episode. This episode is called Kiss. It came out on February 3rd, 1998. There is 9 scenes with just Joey, 7 scenes with Pacey, and 1 of them together. That's kind of sad. There's less scenes with just the 2 of them together than there were last time. Last time there were 5 scenes of just Pacey and Joey, 9 scenes of Joey, and 4 scenes of Pacey, which means 4 less scenes of just the 2 of them together. Same amount for Joey, and 5 more scenes for Pacey this episode, which is good. I like Pacey. But some of them are kind of repetitive, but it's still a different scene. The first scene that we see is with Joey, and her and Dawson are watching a movie where the guy and the girl are making out on the beach. Poor Joey. I just want to throw it out there. Poor Joey has to watch this with Dawson. But then, this is why I say poor Joey, because then Dawson pauses it and says, this is a Jen moment. This is my future we're watching. Me and Jen. Jen and I. Like, and then Joey replies with, a black and white feature. How we do? And Dawson replies with, my first kiss with Jen is just gonna be just like that. Little did Dawson know that, nope, it's not gonna be just like that. Joey's first kiss is gonna be like that, or almost like that. And then Joey says, wait a minute, we're back to that? You mean you haven't even kissed that girl? Which, Joey, that's how we all felt through the season 3 with you and Pacey, but, I mean, it's whatever. You just have to live with it. Dawson then says to Joey, it's not about the kiss, Joey. It's about the journey. Pause. Wait a minute. What? Okay, so you're telling me the kiss is about a journey, And then he continues on with saying, creating a subject magic. Joey then says, does Jen fall for this whack movie logic? And then Dawson goes, it's not whacked, it's romantic. Joey says, it's old, Dawson. Just kiss her, will you? Take the elevator to the next floor and get off. It's time. Bravo, Joey. I have never been more proud of you at this moment. Like, just take the next elevator, walk off, you're good. Good job. Good job, Dawson. I'm so proud of you. Dawson just takes the advice. And then it did not end up well. Which, in my opinion, with Dawson and Jen, I feel like it was very rushed. And I just don't understand how Dawson was so blind to realize that Joey liked him. Like, it took you a whole season to realize that. I know some guys are blind, but for a guy that seems kind of like he knows what he's talking about and living in this fantasy, and like, you would think that he would notice, but I guess the reason why he doesn't notice is because he's living in a fantasy. Just me. And then Joey says, it's not reality, Dawson. These movies that you're watching are false images that don't exist outside the city's limits of Hollywood. Dawson then goes, not true. They're images grounded in reality of imagination. Joey then says, did you just pull that one out of your butt or what? Which, so true, Joey, about the Hollywood situation, but you don't have to remind me that this isn't real life. Like, in my head, these characters exist. So you don't have to remind me that they don't exist. Dawson goes on, being Dawson, says, everyone thinks that movies are fantasies, but they don't have to be. From here to eternity, you have it. You have to create it. That moment on the beach could be yours. You could be Deborah Carr. Which, little did Dawson know, she was actually going to be Deborah. Joey then replies with, sin in my crotch. Heaven. Which, little did Joey know that she would be sailing across the sea with Pacey, which is even more romantic, but here's the thing, let me know what you guys think about this part. How did Joey and Pacey not have sex on the boat? Like, that just seems something that I just never got. I guess it was Pacey being very respectful, but I guess it just reminded me because it said sand in my crotch. I just think it's kind of funny that how Dawson was talking about the beach and how it could be romantic, and then Joey just sails off with, like, Pacey, his best friend. Dawson then goes to tell Joey that the attitude of her are preventing storyboards from happening. Which, no, Dawson, you almost prevented a storyboard. Because from season 3, when you didn't allow Joey to go with Pacey, maybe he didn't, like, really, like, say, hey, don't go with her, but emotionally, he was there in the back of her head. You are the reason why storyboards are being prevented. And then Joey goes on to say, and it doesn't come with the sunset or starlight, summer nights either. I'm sorry, I just can't take this part seriously. Every single time I just think about the boat. And I'm personally offended that this movie metallically where we're supposed to believe that Brad Pitt and Sandra Bullock are going to magically drop from the sky and sweep us off our feet. Which, Joey, what a mood. But why do they always talk with analogies? Dawson then, being Dawson, says, I didn't know you had a thing for Brad Pitt. Every time I hear him say thing, I always hear him say, dang, from the first episode. And then Joey says, Dawson, these movies aren't real. They're not kissing with their tongues. It's take 22, the girl's bored, the guy's gay. It's cinematic. Who talks like this? Let me just interrupt this. Who actually talks like this? She says cinematic. I can't even pronounce it. Like, I'm gonna sound, throughout the whole show, I'm just gonna be like, who talks like this? Because I can't even pronounce so many things right. And I'm like, whenever I watch this TV show, I'm like, these kids are smart. Even, I think Joshua Jackson, who plays Pacey, was even like, Pacey never talked down on someone. Like, he was very, very intelligent, and that's why I like him. He said that on the reunion. Dawson then says, Joey, you bitter, cynical Jan thing. Okay. I like how he says that. He goes, Joey. Like, Dawson, no. Joey then goes, you used to be bitter and cynical, too. You were far more interesting. Which Dawson then says, being Dawson, but now I choose magic. Joey then says, you know, this Peter Pan fantasy film land you're living in, it will be your downfall. Dawson says, one day you'll understand, Joey. You'll know what it's like to long to kiss someone, to have that desire to kiss them, and you're going to come up to me and say, Dawson, you were right. See, Joey, all you need to do is start to believe. I mean, she did come up to you and said that she need Pacey, but you just went, do you need him like you need me? I hate when he says that. I hate when he goes, do you need him like you need me? And now he's like, one day you're gonna come up to me and be like, Dawson, you are right. Like, no, Dawson, you don't accept the fact. I was explaining this to someone today, and I was saying there's 3 different types of ways to handle your anger. And I want to say, the first one is where you get all your feelings out and say every single thing that you're thinking. The second one is in between. You don't really say what you're thinking, but you kind of do it at the same time. And the third one is where you just don't talk anymore. Dawson is the first one. He just says everything that's in his head, which I'm like this. I'm kind of in between, to be honest. But, like, Dawson, get over yourself half the time. Like, no, this isn't reality. And Joey says, clap hard, Dawson. You may be Tinkerbell's last hope. Which, good job, Joey, telling him that he doesn't live in a fantasy. But it also reminds me when he says that you're gonna have the desire to kiss them and you're gonna long for someone. It reminds me of the episode where everyone went to Aunt Gwen's house and she said, like, she kissed Pacey for, like, the first time instead of, like, pushing away. And she was even talking about, like, the next episode. She was like, how am I going to have to explain that I fell for his best friend and la-di-da-di-da, which the whole season 3 at the very end, it just sounds like they were cheating on someone when they weren't, which I get why they did that, but I just found that very funny. We were talking about analogies earlier. That could be one, to be honest. One thing I really do love about this episode, and they brought it out, was this scene, because it just kind of showed the future of what is going to happen in a way, if you really pay attention, where Joey was like, I need you, I need Pacey, and then that whole thing happened, and then with the Aunt Gwen kiss. The next scene that we see is Pacey going into Tamara's classroom and shutting the door. My first reaction to this is, oh no, oh no, oh no, this isn't going to go well, I'm going to tell you that. He then says, I noticed you didn't hand back my test. Does that mean you need to see me after class? Yeah, sure, Pacey, that's exactly what she means. She then says, it means that you racked up another prime number on a quiz. And then I love how Pacey goes, prime, as in quality steak is prime? Me too, Pacey. Think about food at that moment. Me too, Pace. She then says, prime, as in 23 is prime. Do you know anything about Ethan Frome, which I never read that book. It's another book that I have never read, and it's just funny how things have changed. And to think that they're in 10th grade during all this. I'm like, are you sure that you're in 10th grade? Because I never read any of these books, but I guess it's just another whole system with school, and I get it, but I honestly just want to, look at these books just to see what they're talking about. Pacey then says, I know that he has a farm, And on that farm he has a... And then he gets interrupted, which... Honestly, Pacey is a lot like me in this part, because whenever I'm going into like a whole tangent or whatever, and I just start singing, like with Joey rowing her boat, I was like, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 merrily. But it also, when I saw this, I thought about the girl. I want to be a preschool teacher when I grow up, and I've been working with these little kids, right? Every Sunday, I go to the nursery, and I spend, like, probably 5 hours there. And this little girl, when she walked in, she wanted me to read her these nursery books, like, just sing them to her. And I personally, like, I don't really know that many, and I've been working there for probably, like, 5 weeks now. I've been volunteering. And this little girl had spent 10 minutes probably singing these songs. And this was one of the songs was Oh McDonald. So every time I hear her in the back of my head when I saw the scene where she went, Oh McDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on that farm he had a pig, E-I-E-I-O. She went like, and I'm like, me too, kid, me too. And that's what Pacey reminds me of every single time I see this scene now. Tamara then says that this is serious and that he's failing his class. And Pacey replies with, do you know how difficult it is to fail? This has taken a lot of considerable amount of work and energy. Which, Pacey, you need a better cover up, buddy. Because it's not that hard to fail. I'm going to be honest here. I have 2 missing assignments now because I didn't do them and I didn't turn them in on time. And to be quite honest, I just forgot about it. And yesterday I got to school and I'm like, oh, I forgot my assignment. Like, ah. And then I get a 0 in the book. And I'm like, great. My grade went to 100 to a 43. How is that possible? So, no, Pacey, it's not that hard to fail, because normally I make 90s and 80s, but your girl can't do it right now. Then Tamara asked if it was deliverable, which, yes, he just admitted that, and Pacey says, of course, this is a premeditation death threat. See, it was my hopes that a certain teacher was going to bail me out with some private tutorial encounters. And then Tamara says, it's not a question of you're intelligent, Pacey. We then hear Pacey say, see, my problem is I have a focus issue. I have a slave driver, someone with a whip, maybe. Pacey, that's not the image that I needed, buddy. I don't need to see that. Like, I don't need to know that. I don't need to see that. Please never, ever, ever show me that or tell me about that ever again. Which, then Tamara says the two can't interact like this, and Pacey goes, oh no, of course not. This is a terribly wrong taboo. However, you can tutor me. That is completely acceptable within our student-teacher relationship. Tamara, I don't know why Tamara agrees to this. Like, you say, oh no, like, I don't want to be with you. This is wrong, and la-di-da-di-da. Then why are you tutoring the boy? You shouldn't be tutoring him if you know you can't handle the situation. Like, logic, they teach logic right there. Like, I know I'm 17 and all, but, like, think about it. Think about it for a second. Just think about the logic that came into your head when you agreed by saying, I have a teacher's meeting after class, but I'll be working late. Meet me here later, about 6-ish. You should have said, how about never? Like, she should have started singing. Like, I know the song wasn't out, but I would have been like, we are never, ever, ever getting together. And then we see Pacey walking out of the classroom, very happy after agreeing to this. I'm shaking my head right now because Pacey. You are an idiot! Anyway, in this scene. Then we see the second scene of Joey. In this scene, we quickly see Pacey, Bodhi, and Joey. We see Joey walking in and saying, "God, you're huge. Why didn't you stay home?" to Pacey, who is pregnant, which you should never tell a pregnant lady that she is fat. Like, ever. And then that's what Bodhi says. And then Joey says, "Sorry, you're not fat, Bessie. You're just mortally gigantic." I love the way Bodhi chimes in and says, "Your sister reminds me of Beach Will." And then Joey says, "Bodhi." And I don't know why I just love this relationship so much when they bring it out like this. And I feel like especially in this episode we saw a lot of scenes, not a lot, but a few scenes where Bodhi was in more. But this is the first time that we see the different Bodhi who wasn't in the first episode. And this one, I can't remember his name, but he got into a hit and run and he lost a leg. And if you find him on Instagram, you'll see that he is raising money. So if you have money, definitely go support him there. Then this is scene 1 of Pacey and Joey. Sadly, this is the only scene that we actually see with Pacey and Joey, but it's a good one, don't worry. And I just want to compliment on their outfits again. Matching, peach tan color, kind of in a way. And I love Joey's outfit in this whole part of the show. She just looks so good in this. I mean, she looks good in almost every single outfit that she puts on. But this one, top notch, love it. We see Pacey and Dawson talking at the table, and then Joey walks over, and Pacey then says, our serving witch is here, which Joey then sits down next to him. Dawson then says, "Of course this completely ruins my romantic plans with Jen this evening," talking about whatever he's talking about. And Joey then says, "Would you forget about the Wonder Bra for a moment? Don't you have to work on your movie? What's up with that?" Dawson says, "Ordinarily I was gonna do both. That was the plan. Bridge fantasy with reality and prove that, yes, romance can be creative." And Joey says, "Get off of that." And then Pacey goes, "What are you talking about, man?" Which, me too, Pacey. Me too. He's just like, wait a minute, what is he talking about? Dawson then explains, in the end of the movie, right, the monster is dead. Beauty kills the beast. Penelope, our heroine, says her final goodbyes to the beast. I was thinking of shooting it up at the ruins. And then Joey says, that's trespassing, don't get caught. And then Dawson says, it's the perfect malicious heaven, lust and romance. And then Pacey says, and the perfect place to seduce the young, beautiful actress playing Penelope. You dog, you are a slut. I love how Joey was like, that's trespassing, but Pacey was like, you dog, you. Like, okay, Pacey. Complete opposites at that moment, and we can all tell that it's just complete opposites. Dawson then says, you make it sound so cheap. And Joey says, do you want anything, or did you just come here to affect the place? She really meant, did you just come here to mope, or did you just come here to order something? Which I will say, I do love the relationship that they're all having at the moment, where they're all sitting at the table. And I will say it again, I love how Pacey reacted to Dawson's idea like he's a genius, but little did he know that the place that Dawson was talking about was actually going to be the place that he seduced the old teacher, not the young Penelope. Pacey then looks at the menu while Dawson has a big order, which I always wondered, why was he trying to order all these burgers and fries and la-di-da-di-da? For what? Was it for your family? What were you eating, Dawson? Are you stress eating? Then Joey turns to Pacey and asks what he wants. She's like, and what do you want? Pacey then says, what makes a woman horny? And Joey replies with, your polar opposites? Ooh, burn! But really, Joey, I think you'll know what makes him horny later. Dawson then says, oysters. And Pacey says, right, oysters. A dozen oysters. Joey packed them up. Which, I love how Joey just, stared off into space. And Pacey was like, and you can pack them up now, Joey. Come on. You can pack them up now. And I just love how it just continues to bug her as she is staring at Anderson. It kind of, shows what their personality was like from the very beginning, where Pacey was annoying her and Joey was just kind of in her own little world where she was like, I hate you and la-di-da-di-da. But meanwhile, Dawson had no right to be jealous of this guy. But he was like, who is that guy? And Joey goes, who's who? Meanwhile, Pacey got straight to the point and went, the guy that was breaking your neck. Joey then explains, I never seen him before. He's probably just some rich kid who just stepped off his mommy and daddy's yacht or something. And I love how Pacey was just a boy and says, and the way that he grabs her neck and says, could it be? Joey is finally noticing the opposite sex? Let me just say, that's another very, very cute scene that he does. It's just the way that he grabs her neck and just says that. And she tells him to shut up, of course. But I know, he doesn't stop there. No, my friends. He then shouts at the guy and says, excuse me, young man. This woman here thinks that you're very attractive. But I love how he calls her a woman. Just Pacey. Yes, he doesn't call her a girl. He doesn't call her a young lady. He says, woman. I have major respect for Pacey right there. Even though she was 15. He always has called her woman. He has, and I think this goes back to the magazines. He honestly just knows how to treat a woman, and I appreciate it. Joey, meanwhile, does not appreciate it, and she says, you butt plug. And I love how Pacey leans in and says, forget it, Joey. Guys off yachts just don't go for waitresses. And Joey replies with, I'm gonna kill you. One night in your sleep, a slit throat maybe, or a screwdriver to your temple. Be ready. Which, again, I love how Pacey is just smiling and just waiting for her to react the whole time, like a boy that he is. But one thing that I really did notice that will go back into several episodes was the way that he says, guys off yachts don't go for waitresses. And I know that, he's a guy with a boat, but he only had it coming for him when he said something like that, because I think Anderson was kind of he was proof that Dawson was kind of right with fantasy, and Joey was like, hey, this isn't my life, this isn't who I am. But it kind of predicted Pacey and Joey for a hot minute, and hear me out on this, because Pacey had a boat. Pacey took her off to sea and made her feel magical and made her desire for a kiss and all this different kind of stuff. And I honestly think Anderson reminds me of Pacey. And I hate to say that, but he's just the rich version of Pacey. He was very sweet, he took her out, he knew what to do. Meanwhile, the whole time, Dawson got jealous in this scene, but I just don't understand why. And if he felt jealous, he could have said, hey, I like you. But nope, the guy who is clearly living in a fantasy will never understand that his fantasy could be reality, but he never took her on the beach. This is scene 2 of Pacey. We see Pacey and Tamara in the classroom, and Tamara asks, has Ethan made it to the country fair yet? Pacey then replies with, yeah. Yes, he has. Yes, he has. And then Tamara goes, amazing. There was no country fair when I read it. Pacey then puts the book down and asks her what she was like in high school. And Tamara, of course, replies with, what do you need? And he said, a chalk, a brain, a cheerleader, and she asked why, and he says, just curious. She then says, well, I was captain of the dance team and class treasurer, and I studied a lot. He then asks about a boyfriend, and she says, yes, and asks if he was a jock, and she says Centerfield. Why are you asking? And then Pacey asks if, would you ever date me? And Tamara says, Pacey, we're in school. We are not alone. There are people in this building. Which, Tamara, really? If you knew it was wrong, never tutor him. But you knew this conversation was going to come up, and every single time it does, it never goes well. Are you kidding me? And then Pacey says, if you and I had gone to school together, and we were the same age, would you have dated me? There she goes with the boundaries, and of course, Tamara goes, probably not, which, ouch, Tamara, ouch, that kind of hurt my soul. Why would you not want to go with Pacey? He clearly knows women. I mean, he got the magazines, he's calling 15-year-old girls women, like he knew how to treat a girl. And it was only the 3rd episode and I knew that. But she says, that was a long time ago. I learned a lot. I'm smarter now. Pause. Before she even says the next 9 words, well, I was until a few weeks ago. Women, clearly you were not smart if you had the thought of being with a student. Like, even the thought of leading him on. And I get, like, it was a whole different situation. And I mean, if I saw a guy like Pacey, I'd probably go for him too. But, like, no. Like, just back off. You should have just handed him the summary questions and leave. But no. She said she just hands him the summary question and then promised him that she would give him some positive reinforcement. Sorry, I'm just gonna go throw up in a corner right fast. Like, don't mind me. Good job, Tamara. We love that for you. We love that you're gonna give Pacey some positive reinforcement because you're a lot smarter now. And she was right. Well, until a few weeks ago, but she should have never had a thought to be with a 15-year-old boy. But there you are, 30 years older than him, or there you are, 20 years older than him most likely, hitting on him, promising him some positive reinforcement. Scene 3 of Joey. We then see Joey walking outside to find Anderson playing the violin. Looking very cute, may I add. Mostly because I find anybody with an instrument cute. He then tells her, no applause, just send money, and then he goes, wait, don't go, you know you were spying on me. Joey then says it's a public dock, and he says, no, it's okay, my name's Anderson Crawford. And I love how Joey says, congratulations for this part. Which honestly is something that I would personally say. I was telling my friend, 2 hours ago, that every time, I would be a very bad therapist. Because I could just imagine whenever they're telling me their problem, I'm like, congratulations. Do you need a gold star for that? Which I'm usually very good when it comes to people and their feelings. But lately, I have been so bad when it comes to someone ranting to me or speaking the obvious. I'm just like, please, shut up. Like, just shut up about it. And I don't understand it at all, and I don't know why I'm being like that. Anderson then says, do you come with a name or just an attitude? And Joey replies, just an attitude. Joey Potter right there. And then he asks if people find this charming, and Joey says, I haven't asked. He then climbs up the yacht and walks over to Joey while asking what brings her to Capeside. And she shrugs, and he says, tough question. Yeah, I know. I know you'll get back to me on that. Joey secretly was like, I'm from here. Like, I don't know where you're from, but I'm not from anywhere. I'm from behind me in the ice house. That's where I'm from. She then asks what brings him here, and he says, my parents. They're going to antique towns in a search for some Ryvern once spotted. She then says, well, that explains your parents, but what about you? Like, me too, Joey. Anderson says, I'm the crew, and I used to go to boarding school. You can only take that all-male environment for so long. Tell me something about you. A polite gentleman. We love that. We love seeing a polite gentleman on a TV show. And let's be honest, if Anderson wasn't like, if she didn't lie in the next part, I could have seen a relationship. Like, I honestly could have seen a relationship between you two. But I really wish that they did bring more relationships into Joey's life besides Pacey and Dawson, which I know it's really bad because this is a Jacey's Creek. But for Joey's part, like this, only talking about Joey right now, I really wish that Joey had more experience with relationships because she probably only had like 4. There was Anderson, Dawson, Pacey, kind of Charlie, could have been Charlie, and then Eddie, and then back to Pacey. There was a lot of times where she went back to Pacey. But I honestly just wish that we saw her more in season 1 with someone else. But I feel like that's what kind of brought it on, because she was like, this is crazy, why would anyone want me? And I think it goes back to who she was as a person, because she was living with her sister that was pregnant, and her sister's black boyfriend, and then she just thinks that nobody loves her and all this different kind of stuff. Even at the end of the season, she goes, do you love me? And I think this is where it comes back to it when she starts lying, and he asks her to tell him something about her, and she says, well, I'm into body piercings and men with tattoos. He then asks about her parents, and this is what I mean about the lying part. And she says, actually, we bought a chancer. Mother hates sailing. She doesn't like the sun. She birds easy. He then asks, what about you? And she says she wears lotion. And then he asks if she liked to sail, and she asks why, and he asked her to sail with him, which I honestly love that, and I think that's very sweet, and I think it's just very exciting for Joey. But in the next part, I don't support Joey when she kind of goes, like, I don't know, and then he says, I'll show you my tattoo, and she says, Gap Ad has a tattoo, and he says, if you come sailing with me, you'll find out. And he asks what is her name, and she goes, Deborah Carson. And the lying part doesn't bug me necessarily, but I do wish that she told the truth. But again, I think it just goes back to her dad. I think about her lifestyle, because there's this rich boy, he's cute, he comes off the yacht, he walks into a restaurant. I would lie too for him. Like, I would lie too, Joey. I don't blame you one bit. But meanwhile, does she know the guy who was like, this woman right here thinks you're very attractive. was going to be her future husband. Right there. And he was going to take her sailing. But nope. Right now we just have Anderson and Deborah Carson. Then we see scene 3 of Pacey. We then see Pacey and Tamara where he says, "Done, quiz me." And she asks him a question, and he says, and he answers with who is Hilda, and then he got it right, and then he asks, "What do I win?" And she asks another question, and then he says the town name, and then he says, "Fine, I'm ready," and she asks him, "Why do you think Ethan had a strong sense of duty?" And she asked to cite the evidence, and Pacey was a full mood and he just went, like, me too, Pacey, me too. Every time someone asked me in English class to cite the source, this actually happened to me yesterday, and I just sat there and I'm like, my mind just went blank. Every time I don't know an answer in class, I'm always like, my mind just went blank. But now I just want to be at Pacey and just go, I don't know. But I can never say, I just always have to add in words. Then we see scene 4 of Pacey. We then see Pacey giving the full description of what he needed to answer the question with. And she says, well, well, well. And then he asked for his reward, and she told him that she never thought he would get this far. That's honestly, I know she was maybe she was joking in this part, but I don't think that she was, and I just honestly kind of think that's very sad. As a teacher, you're supposed to be supportive of your student, and this wasn't being supportive of your student, but I guess she was supporting him in another way. I don't really know what was happening. He asked for his reward, and she of course says education. But then Pacey, being the teen boy that he is, did not take this answer one bit. She says, "This is my place of employment." And he says, "It's late. There's no janitors, no film crew, everyone's gone home for the night. It's just you and me." And then she replies with, "Pacey." And when he asks what's the matter, she says, "You know you're right. Let's do it. But where should we do it? I know. How about my desk? Our first time should be on my desk. Strip. Hurry up. We don't have much time. Better drop them." This part really annoys me, because I'm like, lady, first the tutoring, and now you're just gonna tell this boy to strip down? Which I know she was like, teenage boy, horny right here, haha, let's get into his pants. Not really at the same time, but he then goes, "I know what you're doing. You're calling my bluff to see how far I'll go." And then Tamara says, "Do you have a condom, Pacey? Because we're gonna need a condom." "Well, this is high school. I'm sure you can get some rounds up." I just hate how she handles situations. This goes back to the last episode where she completely failed at addressing the situation, and he was just like, "Are you gonna tell me? Are you not gonna tell me what's happening?" And then it all led to a kiss, which, gross, I guess. Really gross. Pacey then says, Tamara says, "What's wrong?" Pacey says, "Well, this isn't exactly the most romantic place on earth, you know." And she asks if this was his first time. He goes, "You know that it is." My heart, every single time that he looks at her and just says, "You know that it is," I just get so depressed. I'm not even I can't right now. It makes me sad to know that Pacey was just this was his first time, and this was his experience. It wasn't like a Joey experience or anything like that. It was Pacey having to deal with a 35-year-old telling him to strip down on the desk because he suggested that his reward could be sex. because she continued leading him on. Like, she really did lead him on several times. And then Tamara snaps out of it and realizes, oh wait, I'm 35, he's 15. And then says, go home, Pacey. You need to find a girl your own age, not some insane middle-aged woman. Pacey then goes, please, Tamara. Tamara then goes, please, no buts. This can't go on a second further. It's beyond wrong. You have to understand that. Which, you have to understand that, Tamara, not Pacey. You have to get in the brain that this is not right, but you don't. You continue saying that. I think she's kind of like convincing herself that it's not right. But then it continues going on by saying, like, ooh, like, flirt, without even realizing it, or teasing him, and then he thinks it's flirting. And then Pacey just baffles me by saying, you keep saying how it's wrong, and maybe it is. It is, Pacey, it is wrong. And then he says, but just to set the record straight, I'm a firm believer that sometimes it's right to do the wrong thing. And then good night, and then he left. I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. And then he goes, I'm a firm believer that sometimes it's right to do the wrong thing. I love Pacey, how he always like has these opinions and just says what he believes in. I will never thank Pacey enough for doing that. Scene 4 of Joey. We then see Joey walking towards Anderson's yacht, and he says, Deborah Carson, not Carson. And then she goes, Anderson Crawford. Joey has on this striped teal bikini and a white flannel with her hair down, clipped back, a red lipstick, and a little earring. And can I just be the first to say, she looks so hot. Like, she looked good. Not amazing, but good. I just want to throw it out there. She didn't even look that good for Dawson. He then compliments her and says she looks amazing. I think she looks good. And then she says, yeah. And he says, yeah. He then asks if she wants to come aboard, but he never held out his hand and said, he never made her hold out her hand and say, permission to come aboard? That's the difference between Anderson and Pacey for a moment there, because he just kind of goes, you want to come aboard? And then he says, my parents met some Carsons in the winter at Palm Beach. Any relations? And she says, we're pretty much just Miami bored. And then he asks where she goes to school, and she doesn't know what to say. I wonder why you don't know what to say, Joey. He then asks her if it's a drag, and she replies, well, I don't think so. I kind of like it. And then he's like, what is there to like? And Joey then replies with, it's the privilege of existing. Think of the options. You could be stuck in a small town like this where nothing exciting ever happens. That sounds oddly familiar. I wonder who Joey is referencing to. Anderson then says, it's not the education, it's the boarding life. Seems kind of unnatural. Separated from your family, it doesn't seem fair. Then Joey says, yeah, I keep telling myself I'll get used to it, but I never do. And then I love the way these two looked at this part. It was just really cute because he goes, I didn't know you sailed. And she says, well, I'm a woman of many talents. We then cut to the two sailing onto the beach, and the two were playing frisbee, and Anderson asked what her dad does for a living. In the back of Joey's mind, she was like, sell cocaine? But she says, oh, he's a CEO of a huge company. And he asks, which one? And she says, one of the nation's best-selling tampons. That was the best thing that you could come up with, Joe? Like, oh, the most used tampons, you know? He then asks, what about her boyfriend? And she says, is this just your backwards way of asking if I have one? And Anderson says, well, I assume you did. And Joey asks, and what makes you think that? And I love the way that he says this part. He says, the way you carry yourself. You're really hands-off. It's like a clear radio signal. I guess if I was dating someone, I want them to come off the same vibe. And Joey says, and how would you feel if she sailed to a desert beach with some mystery man? Can we just repeat that part? And how would you feel if she sailed to a deserted beach with some mystery man? Season 3. Sailing off to some mystery man could be a foreshadowing right there. And then Anderson says, as long as she doesn't keep it a secret, don't lie about it. The truth doesn't hurt. It's the lies that kill you. Honesty is primary quality I'm looking in for a girl. Like, and Joey's just sitting there like, oh, that's nice. That's great, dude. We then cut to scene 6 of Joey, where we then see Anderson and her talking on the beach, and she's impressed by him reading some UFO theory, which I even got bored by them just talking about it. And he had this whole layout on the beach and the sand, and it was kind of funny just watching, like, seeing, like, the seaweed and stuff, like, spread out on there, which it must be very nice to live by the ocean. I know they lived by a creek and the ocean. I am jealous. She then asks, isn't that like 1,000,000 pages? And he says that he was just curious. And then she asks if he has ever seen her UFO theories. And he was like, what are you talking about? And then she just crawls to the other side where the frisbee is. And then he's like, oh, no, you don't. And then crawls after her and then tackles her to the ground. And she's just, and this is one of the cutest scenes that I've ever seen in the first 3 episodes. This is probably really cute. She's just sitting there. She's laying there on her back with him almost kissing her. But then Joey ruins it. She just ruins the whole scene by looking at his watch and goes, look at the time, I got to go, by looking at her watch. And then Anderson goes, is that the truth, or are you just trying to wiggle yourself out of a romantic situation? And Joey says, I'm sorry. Anderson says, let's get Cinderella home. Joey said, today was a lot of fun, Anderson, but you should know the truth. Anderson says that would be, I'm not Cinderella, not even close. This reminds me of the episode in season 3 where it was Pacey talking about Cinderella, and this is the first time they showed her as Cinderella, which I can see it now thinking about it, where she was Cinderella, but she never got the Prince Charming. Her Prince Charming came much, much, much later. Scene 6 of Pacey. We then see Pacey in a wheelchair. Why he was in a wheelchair? The world may never know why Pacey Witter was in a wheelchair. I asked in the group chat that I'm in if they knew why, and they just agreed with that he could just be in the wheelchair because he was just found it, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what to say. It just sounds like a Pacey thing to do. But we see him willing to Dawson saying, oh, magic filmmaking. We then see Nellie asking to Dawson what his loser friend is doing here, and Dawson says, get out of that thing to Pacey. And Pacey goes, just keeping it warm. We then see Pacey helping Dawson film while Pacey is pushing him to film the football players that were playing because Dawson was in this movie. And I honestly didn't pay attention that much until I saw this part. And I just want to say, everyone was cheering for Dawson, of course, but Pacey and those muscles. Ha ha ha! I love that scene so much. I don't know. I just found him very, very attractive in this scene. Of course I found him attractive. Then, scene 7 of Joey. We then see Bessie and Joey in the ice house, and Bessie says, "You are late. Look, I'm in charge until you're 18 or Dad gets paroled. Whatever comes first. We have to help each other out, Joey. It's the way that it is." I want to pause here and say, I kind of like this scene because it shows how her life is at the moment. She is expected to go to the ice house that her family owns. And I did like that they kept up with the ice house until, of course, it burned down to the ground because her dad. But I really do like how Bessie kept her sister and didn't leave her and didn't abandon her. And I really did enjoy the whole part where it was just the two of them and they enjoyed each other. And even though Bodie was there and Bodie was helping Bessie raise Joey and they were even having a kid themselves, Bessie never gave up on Joey. There was a lot of times where she could have gave up on her, but no, Bessie stayed the whole entire time. And I love that part because family is always going to be family, but them two really had this connection that was stronger than her mom or was stronger than her dad, because this type of family that they have at the moment was where Bessie was there for Joey and she cared about Joey and she loved Joey, and it just showed at that moment because I think there's a lot of parents out there who don't want kids and don't really care about their kids whatsoever. But at this situation, it wasn't like Pacey's situation. It wasn't like Dawson being the only child where his parents were going to get a divorce eventually and come back together. This was a situation where Joey plainly did not have her family. And it goes back to every single time she's about to get together with someone, she always holds back her feelings. And I think this part where Bessie mentions that she's in charge with her till she's 18 or Dad gets off parole, I think the pregnant Bessie didn't really, she was just kind of being sassy and why the heck aren't you helping me? But I think in another way, it really did show what Joey and Bessie's relationship is and how it is at the moment, because even though Joey's mom got cancer and passed away, Joey did have this sister that loved her and cared about her, and most families do not have that. Then it says, "I'm sorry, ruined my good mood. I'm just trying to have a moment of happiness in my otherwise pathetic existence." You can relate, can't you? We then see Joey seeing Anderson and then rushing over to Dawson and Jen, asking if they mind if she sat there. And of course, Dawson was like, "We don't mind at all." Then we see her wave to Anderson, and Jen asks, "Who is that?" And Joey says, "Nobody." And Jen was like, "Kind of cute nobody." But Dawson was just over there Then we see Anderson saying, "Hi, Deborah." And Joey, of course, says, "Hey." And Anderson was like, "Why aren't you with your parents?" But Dawson ruined the whole mood with saying, "Who's Deborah?" Good friend, Dawson, good friend. Didn't you? Okay, do you not get the hint? But I think he was kind of smirking about the Deborah part because the whole scene with the beach part, that was Deborah and that guy at the beach, and now here Joey was naming herself Deborah. sin. We then see Anderson say she is, and Dawson again. So then says, no, she's not. And Anderson goes, so she's not. Well, who did I spend the afternoon with? An imposter? Which, Anderson, I get it. You wanted to have a little bit of fun and go out there, but why did you go with a random stranger on a boat? That didn't make sense to me. That never will make sense to me, which I understand. I actually have done this before, to be honest, now thinking about it. I didn't know this guy at Beach Week during my church camp, and he was super duper cute, and he kind of reminds me of Anderson. Now he's like one of my close friends. But at the time I was like, ooh, cute boy, I'm gonna go to the beach with him and have fun, which I did have fun with him. And we went and got ice cream and had a really good time. But at the end of the day, I'm like, is he who he says he is? Is he cute? And to this day, if I could date anyone, I would date him in a heartbeat. But now he lives in South Carolina, which is kind of sad. And then saves Joey by saying, it's just that we don't call her Deborah. She's just Deb to us. I like how Anderson goes, are you guys from New York as well? Like, just believes her. Like, are you from New York too? Just accepted the fact that Dawson had no clue what the heck you were talking about. Dawson then says, wait a minute, what's going on here? And at this part, I love how Jim was just trying to save her. And Dawson was like, what's going on? Like, I don't understand. And Jim was like, do you not get it, you Dumbo? Like, how do you not get it? Dense. Like I said, very, very dense. And Jim replies with, yeah, Deb and I go to school together. And you are? He then says, Anderson Crawford. Dawson says, would you like to join us? Deb's friend who we never met ever. Reminds me of Joey in the first episode, which, again, Dawson, hear me out, Dawson had no right to be jealous of Anderson when he was clearly going after Jen. May I not have kissed the girl, but he was trying to go after the girl. Why did he get jealous of his part would never make sense to me, but I do like how it goes back to season 1 where Joey meets Jen for the first time, because she was like, I'm Joey. I live down the creek and we never met ever. And now here Dawson saying, would you like to join us, Deb's friend whom we never met ever? Anderson then says, I'm just getting a takeout. Pacey then says, sandwiches up, and Dawson says, Anderson, the food's good here, but the service is a little iffy. Dawson, you should have shut up at this point because you're just ruining the whole mood. And Anderson says, you think your parents might free you up tonight? And Joey says, I don't know, family Scrabbles tournament's tonight. Pacey, on the other hand, was just like, hey Joey, and Joey was like, I might be able to sneak out later. Meanwhile, her sister's like, come on, like, where are you? What's happening? Like, planet Earth to Joey. Joey then says, I'll stop by after the game. Dawson, of course, replies back to the Scrabble night with, you know, charade is a good 7-letter word you could use in this game. And Joey and Jen both kicked Dawson. Anderson then said, I must have come right in the middle of something. Bodie then comes up and saves the day by setting the sandwiches down and says, that'll be $7.50. And then he turns to Joey and says, Miss, would you like anything? And Joey says, no, but thank you. Bodie then says, anytime. Anderson says, I ordered a takeout. And then Bodie said, right this way. Jen says, it was nice to meet you. And Anderson says, see you guys later. I cannot get over this scene because I like how Dawson kind of shows a little bit of jealousy, but then again, not that much. I like it for Joey, but not for the show. Personally, for the Jacey and Creek's part, but Joey did deserve some type of feeling. Meanwhile, Pacey was getting way too much of his feelings in this 35-year-old woman. Meanwhile, Joey couldn't even get a 15-year-old boy. And I really did see how Dawson was jealous when I first watched this, and I'm like, oh, like, that's how he reacts when he's jealous. Like, that kind of makes sense. There's a little bit of chemistry going on. But then another way, I was like, Dawson, why? Okay, why didn't you say anything? Like, you should have, like, Pacey, I bet if he was there, probably would have made fun of her at the end, but I think he would have just listened amused by the whole situation or made some type of thing out of it. Scene 6 of Pacey. We then see Tamara and Mr. Gold talking and flirting, and Mr. Gold was like, I'll take you home tonight, and Tamara was kind of like flirting back a little bit, and Pacey listened very carefully, but then Tamara walks by, and Pacey goes, hello, Tamara, and walking him says, hello, Tamara, and she was like, he is just a friend, he's just a friend, which I love how she's just explaining herself to a 15-year-old boy again. And then he says, a friend that's walking you home, and she was like, a friend, he's just a friend of mine. Pacey then says, well, I know what you do with your students, so I know he's in for one heck of a ride. Tamara then says, look, you got to stop with this before it gets out of hand. And Pacey says, oh, this is already out of hand. Wait. Tamara then says, what do you want from me? And Pacey replies with, I want you. Which, I don't like the relationship, but the way that he says that is so much better than I could ever say. He was like, I want you. And I'm like, my heart. That's so cute. We then see scene 8 of Joey. We see Joey walking over to Anderson, and he said that when he comes to New York, maybe he can take her to the Rainbow Room. And Joey says, I'm not much of a dancer, Anderson, and I prefer ballet. I'm an East Side girl. He then was about to say ballet isn't a thing, but then stops in and says, if I give you my number, will you call me? And then she takes the number, and he kisses her. And this is the last time that we ever see Anderson, but I really do love this actor and how cute he is, I will say that. But I really do love that at the end he goes, can I walk you home? And she says, no, you need to stay right here in the moonlight. It's where you belong. Because I think the reason why she said something like that at the very end, which was a very Joey fashion to do, I think she kind of took Dawson's advice with the fantasy and romanticizing it, but she wanted to leave that picture there. She wanted to remember him in the moonlight and how she was Cinderella for a day. This was her version of Cinderella, where she didn't get the Prince Charming. She just had to learn the fact that this was the end, and this was all. And then the last scene of Joey we then see Bessie and Bodie and the truck, and Bessie asks, where were you? And Joey says, nowhere. And then Bessie says, thanks for helping me out. Joey then goes, she's being nice, Bodie. What does this mean? And Bodie then replies with, tread lightly. I love this. I love the relationship. It's so cute. I then asked if ballet was in the New York on the east side. Bodie says, no, it's Tribeca. It closed down a couple years. Chef, great chef, why? And then Joey says, no reason. And this is about the saddest scene that I've ever seen. It's where Joey just drops the paper. And I honestly think this is puppy love. Like, no one can convince me off of this. The whole time I watched this, I'm like, it's where you first meet someone and you like them. and you really, 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 really feel attracted with them. But then the whole thing goes down and you don't get to see each other anymore. That's puppy love. I actually had this TikTok where it was like puppy love, hard love, and then true love. And those three goes with puppy love. Everyone was saying Dawson, but I'm like Anderson. And where it feels like a fairy tale, that's what the audio said. And then hard love, it's the worst breakup. That would be Dawson. And then true love, that's Pacey. Just want to point that out there. But the thing that really gets me when she drops the paper, what really sets in my mind was Joey could have had something good with Anderson. I have said this several times in this episode. They could have had something great, and it makes me think of what if. What if Joey actually called him that night and explained everything, where she went, I had a great time with you, but I don't live in New York. And what if she was honestly honest the last time? But then again, I understand why she dropped the piece of paper, but my mind comes up with like 15 scenarios in this part, and it just breaks my heart every single time because I just wish that Joey had someone else beside Dawson and Pacey. As much as I love Pacey, I wish Eddie wasn't the only guy that she went out with, just to go out with, or Charlie for that matter. In reality, I said there was 7 scenes, but really this is the 8th scene. And I just don't count it as a scene because there was no talking and stuff. But, like I said, it's very important. So I'm not going to say too much. But Tamara and Pacey sleep together, where Penelope and Dawson were standing. I don't know how to feel about this episode. I really don't know how to feel because them doing the dirty, I didn't want to know that. I never wanted to see that. But it really broke my heart to know that this 35-year-old woman took Pacey's virginity, which I'm not saying this is right in any type of way, but this is the scene where Pacey grew up, honestly. Not because he lost his virginity, but this whole maybe 6 episodes that Tamara was with him, he really, 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 really grew up. And you kind of saw the change slowly, but when Andy came into the picture, that's when Pacey grew up. But Tamara was just there to be there. And I feel like it goes back to that TikTok I was talking about where there was puppy love, hard love. This is the hard love. This is actually hard because I feel like there was puppy love. I don't think this was puppy love, but in another way, I kind of feel like it does. I feel like Audrey was puppy love for Pacey. And then Pacey actually had 2 hard loves just like Joey. And this was a hard love because Tamara, I will say this 100 million, thousands and trillions of times. Tamara should have stopped herself. She knew what was happening. She knew it was wrong. But in her head, even Pacey said this out loud, she kept saying it was wrong. But she continued pushing him on and leading him on and trying to understand what was happening in her brain. But at the end of the day, knowing that Pacey and Tamara sleep together, and Dawson was filming this, keep in mind. That's where the whole thing comes in handy. There was no words, there was nothing said, but this whole scene with no words and just that image burned into the back of my head honestly broke my heart for Pacey. Because I will never understand why Tamara took advantage. And I guess it doesn't really hit me until a few episodes later where she explains how she was divorced and la-di-da-di-da, but no action can excuse. You knew what you were doing. Pacey knew what he was doing. But it was just a matter of how they were doing it, how they were handling the situation, because every single time Tamara said, back off Pacey, Pacey always came and led her on. Or Pacey always said, oh no, like, this is okay, we're gonna be okay, this is gonna be alright. But then Tamara kisses him, or in this case has sex with him and leads him on. And I don't know how many times they actually do it, but I feel like it might have been a few times. I'm not actually sure, and I don't really want to know, because I think this was the only scene that they see, like, Pacey and Tamara having sex. Which I love how, like, Dawson's Creek really never shows any sex scene. It just shows the after, or like the before, where they like take off the clothes of Pacey and Joey. But at the end of the day, that's all we see, folks. That's all we get for Pacey. Only one scene with just Pacey and Joey, but I do want to say the connection that I make for this was Joey was finding out what her fantasy was with a guy, and she was gonna wait till she desired that kiss from someone. Like I said at the very beginning of the episode, she will desire that kiss from someone. She will need that person, which is Pacey. But I think in this episode it is so important to see how she reacts to nobody else, and how she feels like she's Cinderella at this episode, and how her life is not this fairy tale, and she knows that. But meanwhile, her best friend Dawson was like, this could be you. This could be everything that you desire. Pacey, meanwhile, over here, trying to get Tamara to have sex with him. It was so quick. I never in a million years actually thought that Pacey and Tamara would have lasted this long. I thought it was going to be like the first 2 episodes, but then when 3 episodes came out, I was like, oh dear, this is probably going to be like the whole season. But lucky it didn't. I'm happy for that. I just feel really, really bad for Pacey in this episode. But again, they were searching for love, and they were waiting for each other. And one day, Pacey will find the correct age to sleep with, and one day, Joey will find her desire that she needs, just like Dawson said. And that is the end of episode 3. Share and post it on your story. If you'd like to leave a review, and you can find me on Apple Podcasts, I believe. If not, I'm still working on it, but make sure to leave a comment on YouTube, or tell me how you feel about this podcast by finding me on Instagram, Twitter, and Potter. Or you can find me on TikTok, Pacey and Joey, where I make some fun video content for you guys. I really do like sharing my opinion, and I feel like Instagram has really showed me that. And I do want to say I really do appreciate you listening and bearing with me with this audio situation. I will get there one day, I promise. So you have a great week, and see you next Sunday for the discovery, where we already know what's going to happen. Wink, wink.